Hello and welcome to Point and Clink here on twitch.tv/live action roleplay. Thank you for joining us for what is going to be an interesting show. This is essentially our version of a TED Talk with drinks. And if you've ever heard of the genre niche PowerPoint, that's what this is. We have a diversity of topics that were pitched to us on the top of entertainment. My co-host Tessa and I selected different topics, and based off of the pitch alone, that's how we ended up picking these topics. So let's go and around the Zoom here and just have people say hi, introduce a little bit about yourself, maybe the reason why you picked the topic. I'm gonna start off with my co-host Tessa.
Oh, hi. I'm Tessa. My topic today is why Witch is better than Winx Club, and I chose that topic because it's true. Um, yeah, I guess other things about me. What I'm drinking today is an extremely strong bourbon and peach sweet tea as an homage to my father's Southern heritage that I never experienced. So, anyone else want to go next?
All right, who would like to go next?
I'll
Volunteer,
do
or I will
it.
pick you.
I'm on it.
All right.
Hi.
Hey, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Hebert from Portland, Oregon. By day, I am a postdoctoral researcher at Oregon Health and Science University. I am a research scientist, but tonight I'm here to talk about one of my weird hobbies, which is piracy. In specific, we're going to talk about the history of sea shanties and why they've suddenly reemerged into popularity during the pandemic. And tonight I am drinking a Portland local. It's Reverend Nat's Punch Cider. He makes amazing, amazing ciders here in Portland, so I'm proud to represent. And thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Who would like to go next?
I'll go.
All right.
My name's Paul, and my presentation is on time travel in popular film franchises, and more specifically about how utterly most of these franchises fail in their efforts to keep their rules consistent from film to film. I picked this topic because I studied philosophy of space and time while I was considering a master's degree in philosophy. And it's one of those things that once you pay attention to it, it's just going to bother you in the back of your head every time you watch anything and rob you of joy and love. And I need to share that misery with the world.
Understood. Thank you for sharing your misery. This also explains why I changed my major from political science to English because I learned too much. And even in politics, I learned too much. I'm like, nope, I can't do it. Who would like to go next?
I will go so that I don't get picked. Um,
All right.
my name is Noah. I am also sharing on a topic that has lodged itself in the back of my mind for a horrible amount of time, and that is Dungeons and Dragons third edition, or 3.5, and namely what a fabulous train wreck it is. I'm drinking some light brown, and I'm drinking some red, and I'm drinking them out of a stolen coffee bean shot glass. I mean, borrowed. Fuck. Okay.
You'll return it one day, when it's safe to do so, right?
Yeah.
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 You heard it here. It's fine. It's still being. It's a long time burrow.
Legally binding.
um. All right, Justin, you spoke, so you're next.
Oh boy. So my name is Justin. I am the head of story for Alliance LARP Las Vegas. And I did makeup once for a middle school production of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and this thought has been lodged in my mind ever since my senior year of high school. My senior year of high school was not that long ago, so I do in fact have water in this greatest grandma mug.
Oh my god. I love hearing that was your motivation for making this. That's so cool. All right.
Making middle schoolers look like 80-year-olds was not my crowning achievement.
All right. And Liz, a familiar face on this channel. Hey, Liz.
Hey, I'm back. I'm Liz. I am a beer sales lady by day. I do a lot of other things by night. Today, I'm talking about how Gritty, the Philadelphia Flyers mascot, became a leftist icon because I'm fascinated by this orange monster and his very strange arc in pop culture. I have here a lovely beer from one of my favorite local breweries called McLeod's Ales in Van Nuys, California. This is their Deal with the Devil IPA. They're a super cool brewery that actually specializes in British style ales and cask ales, and they're amazing. So if you're ever in Van Nuys, you should go check them out. That's my shameless plug for them. I don't even work for them. Just go check them out.
Nice. And I am one of your hosts, Ryan Omega. I will not be presenting because I'm just going to make sure that things run. So if you see all the tech behind the scenes, that'd be me. I'm just drinking some protein powdered drink because I me drinking and operating the OBS is not a good combination. Might be entertaining,
No.
but not good. Not for a premiere. Might do it later down the line when I feel adventurous and if you feel like seeing really weird transitions, but we're not going to go there quite yet. So, this particular game, or this PowerPoint, was specifically inspired by a friend of Tessa and mine, Diana Leonard's. What was it called? What'd you call it?
Diana calls it DTL, so Drink, Talk, Learn. That's what her PowerPoints are based off of.
Mm-hmm.
And she is also a huge LARPer at A47 and also a professor of psychology at Lewis and Clark College. So she does these types of things literally every day. Maybe in academia, but every day.
Mm. And because this is a TED Talk with drinks, there is kind of a drinking game for the audience. Now, I do want to give a qualifier for this. Uh, it's a drinking game. Whatever you decide to consume is your responsibility. Some of us are also free to drink. If you check the Twitch policies, the only rule in terms of drinking is that you are not allowed to tip someone to make them drink. But if you decide to consume your own, totally fine. However, also, some of those drinks may affect your presentation, but that is also on you. All right. Tessa, can you go over what some of the elements that we count for drinks are?
Sure. So for every drink, or in this case, clink, there
Mhm.
are some qualifiers. Sure, you can just take a drink whenever you'd like, but the rules, quote unquote, state that for every 3 minutes that your presentation goes over, so after 3, after 6, 9, etc., you have one drink. If a cat, dog, or other pet randomly, so don't just pick them up, crosses the screen, that's also a drink. If you give a disclaimer, now mind you, not a trigger warning, though we encourage those, but a disclaimer before your presentation that you don't want to count for time. For example, I don't own this content, or this is my opinion. That's also a drink because we're trying to keep it within that time span of the presentation. And that's pretty much it. So, I don't know. You could also split drinks if for some reason you accumulate a lot, like a cat happens to be lurking, between your friends if they so choose to volunteer. So you're not on the hook for all of them. Any questions, I guess?
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you have suggestions on reasons why we should drink.
I
I
have
mean, what did you say, Noah?
I have a quick question. For the timer thing, should we keep our own mental timers, or are we going to be alerted?
I'll alert you if you want to say go or start. It'll make my count more accurate.
Okay,
But I'll be lurking behind the scenes with a timer.
perfect.
Yes.
Cool.
So after every presentation, Tessa will be counting the clinks that the group is obligated to handle. And let's see, I already made the disclaimer. Oh yes, we will roll a d20 to figure out who is doing a presentation first. Now, because Jessica and Liz have certain type of obligations, we know that they're going first and second. but we will use a d20 to determine the rest of the order. So lower numbers will go sooner in the order. I think that's right. So we're starting off with Jess, then Liz, and let's have people roll d20s.
My virtual roll is 13.
Your virtual roll is 13.
15.
15 for Paul.
My physical roll, because I'm a huge nerd, is a 7.
7. 7 for Justin. And Noah?
We have a nice solid 10.
10. Okay. All right. So the order is as follows. Jessica will go first. Liz will go second. Then we have Justin third. We'll have Noah fourth. We'll have Tessa fifth. And rounding off this episode today will be Paul. Just so that you're all aware, if I haven't said this already, so I apologize if I have. The way that these topics or lectures were submitted was that we had people submit on my feed. We might also in the future have people submit on my Twitter as well for potential topics. The topics are based straight off of the topic pitch, not who's presenting it, not their followings, not who they are as a person, but based off of the pitch. And this way it is a level playing field. So if you want to do this in the future, you have a chance just based on how well you can pitch. All right. With that, Jessica, we can start with you. Are you ready, Doctor?
I am so ready.
Okay.
We're gonna do this.
All right, let's do it.
We kind of are. There we go. Yes. All right, I think we're up and running.
Yep.
Excellent. So, hello, I'm Dr. Jessica Hebert, PhD. I am, again, a postdoctoral research scientist, and I spent 10 years doing placentology, and these days I'm doing renal function and rhabdomyolysis. But that's not why we're here tonight. No, we're here because 15 years ago I got sucked into a shanty singing pirate group, and I haven't walked away since. In fact, 2 years ago I became the captain of PDX YAR, a Portland-based privateer group here in Portland, Oregon, and I am also a singer-songwriter with a spin-off of that group, the PDX Broadsides. We spun off 11 years ago as a nerdy, dirty a cappella girl trio singing shanties, and then we slowly went away from shanties, though we'll still write them if you commission us, and now we sing about zombies and space and Nathan Fillion's butt. So, but shanties are always going to be my heart, and if you've paid attention to the news lately, shanties have recently reemerged in popularity. So we're going to talk about what shanties are and why they're so perfect for what we're going through as a global phenomenon right now. So what's a shanty? Let's start there. A shanty is a work song, and they're used to keep time for different activities on board a ship. They're very rhythmic, and those rhythms match different tasks on board. And we'll talk more about those types and the importance of shanties a little bit later in this presentation. But historically speaking, the earliest known shanties were in the 1400s, and they were a chant style, not really musical, but rather just rhythmic, using either nonsense words or basic words to get the action done. So haul or vale. The earliest known in print was 1549, and it was a Scottish chanting anchor song, and they were using what they thought were nonsense words, but they'd picked them up from a Spanish ship, and so what they were actually doing was using mispronunciations of Spanish words for hauling, but it was recorded as a Scottish song with crazy words. Not quite. 1650 to 1730 is what's known as the golden age of sail in the Caribbean. So we have a lot of Spanish influence, stevedore hauling songs as ship cargoes were loaded and unloaded, particularly rum and sugarcane. 1700s to mid 1900s, you have whaling and battle songs. Whaling was big tradition. I mean, it was a big money maker, and battle songs, it was kind of how they kept the history going of some of the things that they had seen, because they could pass it very easily by oral tradition. One of those examples is Mrs. McGraw, which was written about the Battle of Fuentes de Oñoro during the Napoleonic Wars, and that battle was May 3rd through 5th, 1811. It specifically mentions those dates in the song and goes, "A big cannonball on the 5th of May took my 2 fine legs from the knees away," and that's how he got injured. Mrs. McGraw is also great because his mom scolds him throughout the song for losing his legs, which is, I think, as a Midwesterner, the best and completely understandable. The 1800s are the heyday of the shanty, and English predominates these shanties because England was also predominating the world of the sea. Speed and morale were really essential for these tall ships, so songs helped keep everybody on task and helped keep everybody happy and entertained. In the 1900s, we start to see the decline of the shanty, and part of that's due to technology. Steam is more in fashion, and then we get to diesel, and then later, nuclear. So as these things shift on board, there isn't a need for work songs that match those particular rhythms. There are some exceptions into World War I and World War II. We still hear the British Navy using some of those songs. Some whaling, but again, whaling has decreased in the 1900s and now into the 2000s, so fewer whaling songs. But the submariner songs of the 1940s during World War II gained a lot of popularity on the radio. And it sort of mirrors what we're going through right now. And there are adoption of songs from other traditions as well. Some of the songs you may have heard before in a pub, or you may have heard farmers using them. You may have heard slaves using them. They were songs that were adopted from other traditions and then used on board a ship. So, types of shanties. We have hauling shanties, short versus long haul shanties. And a short haul shanty is something that is used to raise or lower something very, very quickly. So you don't give it a lot of time. So Holloway Joe is an example of a short haul shanty. And you've got multiple hauls in the chorus. So the verse goes, "When I was a little lad, so me mother told me, way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe." So the hauls are on the away and the Joe, and that keeps repeating and gets the work done very quickly, so that chorus just keeps coming up. Blow the Man Down is a lot longer. There's a longer verse, and you only pull once during the lines in the choruses, because usually that's when you're raising something like a topsail. You have windlass, capstan, and stamp and go shanties, which all have a very steady rhythm. What you see on the left here with that hook, that's a windlass, and a windlass was often used to raise and lower an anchor. On the right, that's a capstan being marched round on a modern sailing ship. And both of these required very steady rhythm, because if you got it wrong, somebody could get hurt. That capstan will snap back on you and throw you overboard. Nelson's Blood and the Drunken Sailor, very popular, are examples of capstan shanties because they have very steady rhythms. What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? And it's that steady rhythm that keeps you going around throughout. A pump shanty was used for pumping out the bilge. The bilge is all the water and the brack and, stuff that you would think goes on the poop deck, but isn't on the poop deck. It's down in the bilge. That all needs to get pumped out from time to time to allow for better ship buoyancy, and also because it smells terrible. These pump shanties, and you see two different examples of pumps on board a wooden sailing vessel, had a very steady rhythm as well, like a capstan, but with a little bit more of a heave to them. The old Virginia lowlands, lowlands, low. Mimics the up and down motion of the pump. In later sailing vessels, the pump was replaced with a capstan, so the same songs to pump the bilge ended up being some of those capstan songs. And finally, we have what's known as the forecastle or forecastle shanties, and these aren't necessarily shanties, but rather sea songs. So they're songs that were often adopted from pubs, and they had kind of a storyline, and these were used as entertainment. Now, some of the things can be interchanged, like I talked about. Capstan shanties could later be used to pump the bilge, but there were certain songs that you did not sing if you were going out to sea. You waited till you came back in, like Rolling Down to Old Maui or Lever Johnny Lever, because if you sing those while you're going out or while you're way out at sea, your crew gets very sad and they tend to mutiny. So there are certain times and places for these songs, and a good shantyman knows when and how to use them. Speaking of a good shantyman is worth 10 on the line. That's what Stan Hugel, who is the gentleman in black and white, says, and he was what's called the last modern shantyman in the 1940s. A man who can keep rhythm, or woman or person who can keep rhythm and keep everybody on task, is going to save you a lot of work and hassle, because they're going to keep everyone moving together. They're an integral part of the crew for that reason, and they're also a historian, because they're writing songs and keeping the history of what's happening on the ship and spreading it to other ships when they go into port. Need a line, take a line, have a line, leave a line. Sometimes the line, the work that you're doing needs one more line, and so you can pull it from another song. Cape Cod Boys and South Australia share a lot of verses in common, because a shantyman's like, oh, we need 3 more verses. I got this. And both of them are about getting the hell out of Boston. So they work together very well. The shantyman is kind of the actual leader of the work, and they're also an entertainer. The gentleman in black and white in the sailor hat, that's Tom Lewis, who is a wonderful shantyman and is still singing up and down the West Coast for sure. And that is a group of shanty singers on the bottom aboard the Balclutha in San Francisco at Hyde Pier. They get together once a month to sing shanties all together, and it's a lot of fun. So why are shanties suddenly popular now here in the pandemic? We can thank a gentleman named Nathan Evans, who sang a song called The Wellerman on what's now known as Shanty Talk on TikTok. And he ended up inspiring a whole lot of people to sing other harmonies and things with him. And if you haven't heard Wellerman yet, go and listen to it. I really think it's a wonderful video, and it brings people together. I think that's why we're singing it right now. There are environmental similarities between what we're going through and what people on a ship would be going through. We're in enclosed quarters with the pandemic. We're not able to go out and see our loved ones. We're kind of stuck where we are. Shanties are really easy to sing, and they give us a sense of community, of belonging as we're singing together. Shanties are often about things like that are universal concepts: sadness, happiness, harpooning whales, like, the huge. And it gives us something to focus on to get through trying times. But don't call it a comeback. We were already here. Shanties have been part of the modern musical scene for a long time. So traditional ones that you can find, we've got Tom Lewis, who is still touring, David Coffin, who runs the Revels in Massachusetts, and PDXR, which I happen to be the captain of, based here in Portland. If you are looking for more the folky sea songs, Stan Rogers wrote, he's the man in black and white. He wrote Barrett's Privateers. It is not a historical song. It was written in like 1970, but every Canadian worth his or her or their salt knows Barrett's Privateers, and it's a lot of fun. And that's an example of a folk soul or a story song. Merry Wives of Windsor are a lot of fun. They sing all together in great harmony, and they sing a lot of very bawdy songs, and Stompin' Tom Connors. And then you've got the more contemporary shanty singers. people who are maybe not singing the traditional tunes but writing new ones. So my band, the PDX Broadside, still turns a shanty or seven. Our friends the Misbehavin' Maidens in Maryland do a lot of shanties, and I encourage you to look them up because they're hilarious in body as well. And certain segments of the filk community. Shanties, again, are super easy to sing, so if you've ever gone to a convention and you see a filk room, go in, ask somebody about a sea shanty. I guarantee you that somebody in there will want to sing with you. So if you're ready to sing your own sea shanty, it's time to get to singing and learn some shanties. Shanty.rendance.org, run by Andrew Draskoy, is great. He has a whole list of different songs that he's collected over the years. There's a Spotify list link here made by Ida Barrett, who is Blackstrap of the PDXR crew, and it's wonderful. Just shanties and such from all over the place that are a lot of fun to sing. And two books that I really like that are collections of shanties along with the history of where they came from. Songs the Whalemen Sang by Gail Huntington and Shanties of the Seven Seas by Stan Hugel, who was the best and has really inspired me to be the shanty singer I am today. And then go use them. Go make something on Shanty Talk. Tag that. People will sing with you. You can join a local shanty or revels group. I promise if you go to your local English pub, you'll find somebody who wants to sing them with you. And again, filk circles and programming are a great way to test those out. So I have a lot of thanks to give to folks who lent me pictures for this, to Ida for making that Spotify list, the crew PDXR, Ryan for inviting me, Shanty Talk, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and probably in your backyard singing Barrett's Privateers at the top of my lungs. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Yay.
All right.
That's shanties.
Fantastic.
Woo, wow.
Your time was 14:38 by my count. So you will be needing a 3, 6, 9, 12 surpassing. So 4 total shots for that. Or 4 sips or a very healthy chug. 1. Oop. Okay.
Rude.
That's a healthy chug.
Thank you. I will stop sharing my screen.
Yes. I was trying to figure out, it's like, wait, how do I stop sharing screen? Thank
Oh, no.
you.
I
Yeah.
have the power.
Yes. No worries. This is why it's the first episode. We are still trying to figure certain things out, but thank you. Let's see. Have all the drinks been drunken yet?
Well, that was a very healthy chug, but I'm assuming if the good doctor wants to assign another drink to someone else or take another, that I would not be opposed.
Tessa, you're gonna take one because you're drink bully.
It's called the Shot Czar. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's a good name.
Oh,
May the
shot.
Czar come to make us drink our vodka and rum. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Woo.
I can't
for
make up
hire, you
anything
guys.
better.
Just go
Thanks for
bum
letting
bum
me share
bum bum bum.
Thanks for letting me share my love of shanties. I'm a big fan.
Do we have any questions from the chat?
Oh.
Oh, I'm looking. Like, I'm just gonna give them a little bit of time to see if they have any. But if not, we are ready to move on. But oh my god, Jess, that was amazing. So, what got you even into doing all of this?
I started dating a boy who was an actor, and he sort of accidentally fell into a pirate group after doing a Revels production, and they invited me to join. And I married him and kept being a pirate, so it worked out.
That's so cool.
Yeah, now he's mainmast, and when we got married, they started calling me the mizzenmast. But I'm Captain Greta these days, and you best not forget.
Nice. So we have some questions in chat. I guess one of them is pretty facetious. Is having an eye patch or peg leg required?
No, but fun fact, pirates, the first modern democracy, if you lost an eye or a leg, you were compensated for it. So it might actually be financially reasonable. You lose an eye, you lose a leg, they're going to take care of you, and they're going to take care of your family.
Another question, do you sail at all as well?
I have been on ships, and I took a tall ship sailing course this spring online. Believe it.
Online? How does that
Yeah, there was a captain out of, oh man, I can't remember which port on the East Coast, but he was wonderful and did like 6 weeks of learning all about lines and hauling on a ship, and it was really fantastic. But no, I'm not a regular sailor. I usually say my boat's over there. Um, it's it's a very big boat because her name is Gravitil Borza Spise Peditor de Gutil Are Ostergans Verbat, which has to fit across the side of the ship.
Final question, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. Bard of Many Things asks, can you sing your favorite shanty?
My favorite shanty. You know what? So I mentioned the Submariner shanties, which are a crazy sort of class of their own, and they talk about being locked up in this tin can, which I think is really appropriate for the pandemic. So I will sing you a little bit. It's called Chicken on a Raft, and you can look it up and you can see how long you can spend on a raft with a chicken. There's a timer. Skippers in the wardroom drinking gin. Way-oh, chicken on a raft. I don't mind knocking, but I ain't going in. Hey-oh, chicken on a raft. Jimmy's been laughing like a drain. Way-oh, chicken on a raft. Looking at my comic cuts again. Way-oh, chicken on a raft. Oh, chicken on a raft on a Monday morning. Oh, what a terrible sight to see. Dabtoes pouring the dustman out. Sitting there picking on a chicken on a raft. Yep.
Yeah!
Woo! Chicken on a raft is a runny egg on a piece of overly dry toast, which was a standard breakfast fare on board a submarine. Dabtoes were the were the officers, and the dustmen were the enlisted men. So Dabtoes forward and the dustmen aft. But all together, we are sitting here picking on a piece of runny egg on a piece of overly dry toast. Like this, no matter what, death and chickens come to us all.
Okay, I'm drinking to that. Clink.
Can you imagine being in a submarine and
Oh,
We lost your sound.
we
Tessa.
lost your sound.
oh no, can you
You're
hear me
back.
now?
Yeah,
You're
you're
back.
back.
Yes, you're back.
Okay, can you imagine being on a submarine? The guy next to you is coming up with this song. You're trapped in the submarine, sitting next to him. You have to eat the same piece of toast too. You probably just want to punch him until the song is complete, and then everyone sings it.
I mean, it's such an earworm. Because I'm like, chicken on a raft.
Yep.
Chicken on a raft.
And everybody sings away, oh, chicken on a raft,
Raft.
and stamps. Like, it's, I love singing that one to drunk people and children because they're essentially the same. Like, they're gonna stamp and scream, and that's great.
All right. Thank you so much. Oh
Thank
my
you.
God.
Thank you for the questions. It was fun.
All right. Next on the presenting table, we have Liz.
It me.
Yes.
I am going to encourage my fellow presenters to not mute themselves because I want you to laugh at me and I want to be able to hear it because it makes me feel better.
Copy that.
Okay.
No, I get it. I get
I am
it.
going to encourage that. Please and thanks.
All right. Same with the audience. If you have any questions afterwards, feel free to make those questions in the chat. So,
Okay.
yes, laugh audibly.
Yeah. Same to you, chat audience. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Oh, real quick, someone redeemed Hydrate. So does
Oh.
anyone want to drink to that? I think in theory.
Yes, I'll drink. I'll drink to that.
Okay. All right. All right. As I said, I am here to talk about the one, the only, the Gritty. Yeah, like let's just get into it. Let's talk about Comrade Gritty. He had these origins as a simple hockey mascot, and he's become this like leftist, communist, socialist icon. And I wanted to find out how, and now I'm going to tell you all how that happened. So I'm going to actually move this because I can't see all my text. Okay, that's done. From humble beginnings, Gritty made his debut as the mascot of the Philadelphia Flyers hockey team on September 24th, 2018. So allegedly, this idea for Gritty arose after the team's COO's son asked why the Flyers didn't have a mascot. All the other teams in Philadelphia have a mascot. The Philly Fanatic is particularly popular in Philadelphia. Like Philadelphia loves their sports and they love their mascots, and the Flyers didn't have one. So his son asked, and he was like, yeah, I guess we should get one. Brian Allen is a freelance graphic designer, and he's actually the one who created Gritty. He was contacted by the Flyers after they saw like this earlier sort of edgier version that got submitted as part of a Chick-fil-A ad campaign for the Georgia-Auburn football game. Yeah, I tried really hard to find that prototype and I couldn't. I did find a lot of weird, horrifying mascots that were submitted to this though, but like that was the origin. The Flyers saw it and they liked it for reasons. So, okay, how did we get here? Gritty's big personality was sort of by design. He is a bit of an anti-mascot, and he's got this reputation for bullying other mascots, and he has these antics where he like puts kids in the penalty box, stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, like, that's his whole persona. Also, Gritty is weirdly terrifying. I want you to like reach back in your mind and try to remember the first time you ever saw him, like whatever that context was. Like, remember that feeling, because it was weird, right? It was a weird feeling. We're all like, who the fuck is this weird mascot? I pulled a bunch of quotes out of different articles when I was researching for this. I don't have citations because I wasn't expecting to do this for a live streamed audience, so roll with me here. But one of the initial articles said, yeah, it's easy to forget now, but the initial response to Gritty was one of weird terror. Somehow the Philadelphia Flyers had conjured a sinister children's television character straight out of creepypasta, turned it into their mascot, and then set it loose on the internet. Gritty's shtick isn't that he's lovable and huggable, it's that he's super confrontational and just a little bit scary. That was sort of the vibe they went with. And then came the tweet that instantly made Gritty beloved to Philadelphians everywhere. And it's because he shit-talked Pittsburgh. So, Gritty was announced on Twitter with this tweet. Just a very simple, it me, Gritty, picture of him. And the Pittsburgh Penguins, who is their NHL hockey team's mascot, responded with LOL okay. Gritty, who is not one to take this sitting down, responded in kind. Sleep with one eye to open tonight, bird. And this is a GIF of Gritty looking very menacingly at the camera. I couldn't get the GIF into the PowerPoint, but just like imagine him looking up at you very menacingly. That was sort of what happened there. And people instantly loved it. The combination of this tweet as well as sort of other noteworthy news coverage really cemented Gritty as this icon that people loved. Gritty was announced around the same time Brett Kavanaugh was being confirmed for the Supreme Court. And John Oliver had kind of this gimmick on his show Last Week Tonight at the time where he had his own dog Supreme Court with each of the Supreme Court justices represented as a different dog. And when Neil Gorsuch had been sworn in, John Oliver put a lobster on the court in his place to kind of represent that Neil Gorsuch didn't belong there because Merrick Garland had been nominated by Obama and Mitch McConnell had blocked the nomination. So that was sort of John Oliver's way of saying, like, we have all these dogs and this lobster because the guy doesn't belong there. So John Oliver, around the time Brett Kavanaugh was up for his nomination and Gritty was revealed to the world, really gave Gritty this national spotlight where he did the story on Brett Kavanaugh. And John Oliver said, quote, "But Kavanaugh, if he is seated, doesn't even deserve that treatment, the treatment of being a lobster. He deserves something that constantly reminds people who he is. He deserves something hostile, consistently unsettling, temperamentally unpleasant, and that screams, who the fuck allowed this to happen?" And he seated Gritty on his Supreme Court in place of Brett Kavanaugh. Also around this time, the first Gritty tattoo was on record and was done, which really just set the tone, which I will show you now.
Oh, jeez!
Awful.
Oh!
It was
Oh,
great.
no!
Right?
Really set the tone. It's interesting because like the Philadelphia Flyers did a lot of conversations with the original mascot who played the Philly Fanatic because they anticipated pushback to this mascot. Like they knew people initially weren't going to like him. And they managed to make it work. So Gritty kind of instantly became this meme on the internet shortly after he was announced. People just loved Gritty and they found him really memeable. Within days of his debut, the internet had been hard at work photoshopping him everywhere they could think of. The internet was just a trove of these dumb jokes. Most notably, we had things like "A Star is Born," "Creepy Gritty," and also that time Gritty shot a man in the back with a t-shirt cannon. So
That's
here's
how I
just
want to go out.
yeah, it's a lot. Here's just like a compilation of pictures that someone had put together of a Philadelphia Flyers game with Gritty at it. We have the "Star is Born" memes because this is around the time that came out, photoshopping him in where Lady Gaga was. This was also around the time of
Oh
Kim
my
Kardashian breaking
God.
the internet. We have him doing that very famous pose. Gritty, please murder me with your t-shirt cannon, because Gritty's in the business of shooting people with t-shirt cannons. And this was the creepy Gritty stock images. This person just photoshopped him in the background. Creepy, you know that. Hiding behind a tree. Just watching people cry. Standard Gritty stuff. Okay, but now we have to ask ourselves, how did Gritty go from this beloved hockey mascot and Photoshop fuel to a leftist icon? What is it about this orange monster that screams comrade? And why did the left, Antifa, and other progressive groups attach themselves to Gritty? As with most things, it started on Twitter. Just 2 days after Gritty's debut, on September 26th, the socialist magazine Jacobin tweeted this: "Gritty is a worker." No context, just Gritty as a worker. And then on October 2nd, shortly after, Donald Trump was visiting Philadelphia. People decided the only thing to battle one orange menace was another. So people came out to these Antifa and anti-Trump protests with signs depicting Gritty and claiming he was Antifa. Speaking to the Daily Beast, Philadelphia writer George Suricello Marr said, quote, "This is a joke people have been making for a while. Since Gritty's appearance, people have, half tongue-in-cheek, joked about Gritty being a queer and trans icon and a radical spokesperson. These are always half jokes, but they're also things people are putting some real politics behind as well. Philadelphia is an underdog city that really impacts and runs through a lot of the politics, particularly the sports spirit throughout the city. So when you see the launch of this mascot Gritty, who by all accounts, a sort of a hideous monster, the response from an underdog city is to say, yeah, but he's our hideous monster. And if you don't love him, then fuck you." Here are some examples from that protest of Gritty as Antifa. As you can see, the Antifa International Twitter account started tweeting out pictures like this. These are from the anti-Trump protest for his arrival in Philadelphia. Just only one orange asshole. Not much else to say about that, but yep. So this is really how leftist Gritty was born. There are other theories about why he has become so popular. Here's a collection of quotes where they just basically asked a bunch of different people. Quote, "Gritty was embraced by many leftists as an example of the chaotic good that they hope to bring to the political conversation and our world. He is millennials' love of absurdist humor realized in one monstrous form. Gritty seems so weird and crazy, and it feels a lot like leftists can identify with feeling a little weird and crazy." both huggable, but also potentially insurrectionary and violent. Like Gritty is fluffy, but he has something else going on behind those eyes. Gritty communicates the absurdity and struggle of modern life under capitalism while bearing that weight cheerfully, striving to better the lives of his comrades. Also, getting attention from mainstream news and the general public is a high priority for leftist organizers because their message is so often muted or challenged by corporate media. I think the reaction to this juxtaposition of silly sports mascot advocating for leftist worldviews itself became a meme that leftists were so happy to adopt. It's fun after all. And finally, so when we recuperate this orange menace, it's as an anti-hero, a no fucks given orange lunatic, but one who belongs to us. Gritty is a symbol we've claimed because as Philadelphians, we famously don't give a shit if we're allowed to or not. Yeah, basically just the embodiment of that feeling. A few more meme examples here. So this is interesting because there was so Pepe the Frog is a different meme that I could do a whole presentation on, who was really co-opted by the alt-right. And Gritty kind of became the anti-Pepe. The alt-right actually did try to take Gritty for their own, but it did not take. They cannot have our orange monster. They have their own. So we would see a lot of things about like Gritty beating up Pepe. Yeah, eat your lord, standard Gritty stuff. Oh yeah, this really good. I'm not sure who the quote's by, but standard like Marxist ideology. Again, the real champion of the workers is obviously Gritty the hockey mascot. So how did this evolve? Gritty memes remained popular throughout the end of 2018, and they never really left. But the Gritty Twitter kind of continued to tweet out content that people loved, but it never over tweeted. And in fact, sometimes it would go weeks between posts. There's, I think, maybe like 4 people running it, one of whom is the guy who plays Gritty himself, whose identity no one knows, apparently. It's a very closely guarded secret, but they'll go weeks between tweets and then they'll just tweet something deranged. It's great. The alt-right, like I said, the alt-right briefly attempted to co-opt him, but it didn't work because Gritty is our comrade. Gritty stayed in the news sort of just for his silly antics, and it would get memed occasionally. There's not a bunch written about him between 2019 and early 2020. It was just kind of him being a deranged hockey mascot. But his moment to shine really came in the 2020 elections. Oh, also he apparently punched a man's son, which is just
good for him.
Yeah. Honestly, who can blame him? Look at that kid. That's terrible. Don't punch children unless you're Gritty. Yeah. 2020 elections were really his time to shine. Because yeah, he's awakened all the chaos gods. Smashing fascists. So, as many may remember, in November, Pennsylvania was called for Biden early Saturday morning. And that was basically when we knew Biden was going to be our president. That called the race. It was really the deciding factor in the election. And this ignited a whole wave of Gritty memes. As one Twitter user put it, he's the manifestation of Philadelphia as God, like Roma. It was only right that he would be featured prominently in this victory that Pennsylvania got to claim. It's also a nice tie back to his initial appearance at the anti-Trump protests 2 years prior. And obviously Biden is not a leftist, but only fascists vote for Trump. So Gritty's history made him perfect meme fodder. Right there. Yeah, just a few more examples of you guys may remember this because this was not that long ago, and there were just many good memes about counting all the ballots. This one, The Shining, classic. Woman yelling at cat, very good. And yeah, what is a king to a god?
Yikes.
Yeah. And yes, so this is Gritty reigns. It only took him 2 years to become a frightening mascot to Antifa member, leftist, and the face of Democratic victory for the highest office in the country. Somehow, this horrible orange monstrosity has become beloved by millions, most likely out of sheer spite. But one thing is certain, Gritty is our comrade in the fight for equality and justice.
All right, so by my timer, it's 14 minutes, 46 seconds.
Ooh.
So that will be a solid 3, 6, 9, 12 surpassing, 4 clinks, or a very prolonged healthy chug.
If you keep your pinky up, it's classy.
Oh, yes.
Is that true? Okay.
Allegedly.
Anything we see on stream, of course, is true.
Supposedly.
That tracks. Yeah. Makes total sense.
Do we have any questions for our lecturer, Liz? Please feel free to ask in chat. So
Please.
Liz,
Yeah.
you may have covered this, but why the gritty meme? It was interesting because I actually knew absolutely nothing about gritty. But Tessa said, I think it's a good one, even though it's political. And I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to learn. I literally knew nothing, but I have been downloaded a bunch of interesting stuff now. So what was the motive?
So I have done these presentations like prior for like birthday parties and stuff, and I typically do them on memes because I just find memes really interesting. And the last presentation I did was in December, so like we had just kind of come off of this like fresh wave of gritty memes, and I realized I didn't really understand how gritty had gotten from just like standard horrible orange meme monster to like comrade gritty. I was like, what's the arc there? I really want to know. And because I just didn't, because it's one of those things that like I think shows up so much in the zeitgeist that we just kind of eventually accept it, but we don't really ever think about the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I love like meme history and stuff. I think it's so interesting the way we communicate with them. And I was like, I need to understand how gritty became my comrade. Like, it's really important to me to know. So, and it was like fresh in like the media because of all the memes from the election. So it felt topical.
Nice. Let's see. We have a few questions. One is
best.
Thoughts on Gritney?
Oh, I love Gritney. Yeah, I love Gritney. Gritty deserves to be happy and have a spouse, and I hope that's Gritney for him.
Am I assuming that's Gritty and Britney?
Yeah, someone made basically like a cosplay that's just like girl Gritty with like boobs, I think. It was horrifying and amazing.
Good for her.
Yeah,
It's Britney, bitch.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that was the tweet, was it's Gritney, bitch. And I had like 5 people send it to me when it came out. They're like, you'll appreciate this. I was like, I do.
She's definitely a comrade because she better work.
It's true.
Oh!
Yeah. Truth.
Woo! And the other question is, when do we get a Cookie Monster / Gritty fic?
I'm almost certain that exists on the internet already.
No.
I find it because I don't need that. But I am certain it exists somewhere already because Rule 34 is a thing.
Yeah. Although my guess would be it would be Gritty / Cookie Monster rather than Cookie Monster / Gritty. At least those are my thoughts.
There's
Maybe?
Okay, maybe. I'm trying to figure out who is like the pursuer and who is the pursued here.
I'm not,
Gritty is
I'm not supposed to be old enough to know the distinction.
Gritty is definitely more aggressive. So,
Right.
you know.
This is a cursed thing I shouldn't have thought of ever. I'm blaming the chat.
Cookie Monster.
You're all very welcome.
Cookie Monster is kind of a selfish lover, but Gritty can keep up.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
I'm looking
sorry,
up how old Cookie Monster is right now because I do not believe this.
I'm sorry, I'm catching up on the chat and people are really into Gritty. Wow. Holy cow. Wow. Someone thinks Gritty is hot. I appreciate you all so much.
I was excited to present in this, but then I saw Gritty come up as one of the subjects. I'm like, oh, that's way better.
Okay, Cookie Monster is 47. It's fine.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh.
totally fine.
Wow.
Today is
in the
November
chat.
2nd.
Someone in the chat is looking it up on AO3. No.
I'm
Oh, God.
yes, like
Your
they're-
search history is doomed.
Oh, don't do it.
Okay, I think it's fair enough for us to transition to the next lecturer. Thank you, Liz. That was incredible.
I'm so glad I got to curse you all with this knowledge.
Yay! We are cursed.
Yay.
All right, next we're going to hear from Justin.
Yeah, on that horrifying note, let's turn to some lighter fare. Namely, why Violet Beauregarde should have won the Chocolate Factory, or us, why Roald Dahl is a coward and I want to fight him. So, imagine for a moment that you're going in for a job interview. It's the strangest job interview you've ever been to, and it starts with a tour of where you'll be working. You're one of 5 candidates, and you watch as one by one they each devastate their chances of working there. 3 people ignore safety precautions, contaminating surfaces and putting people at risk, and are removed from the tour. 2 of them are permanently disfigured from their carelessness. 1 guy sneaks off and steals product. And you're tricked into making a mistake. A mistake that only hurts you. But surely, you reason, you are qualified in every other way to ace this job. You didn't do that on purpose. And then you lose to the guy who stole product. But this isn't a hypothetical. This is the very real fictional situation presented in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And that is actually the name of the 1971 movie. And we will only be talking about the 1971 movie because Johnny Depp scares the hell out of me. Also, the 2005 movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory does a very good job of making Violet Beauregarde and the other children unlikable. I will be referencing back to the book a few times, but my primary source is and will be the 1971 film starring June Wilder. But Justin, you cry, I'm only here for leftist icon Gritty. I've never even watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You're about to get a crash course synopsis courtesy of Wikipedia and embellished by my own sassy gay self. So in a small town, Charlie Bucket, a poor paperboy, watches children visit a candy shop. Walking home, he passes Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. A mysterious tinker, that we never see again, tells Charlie nobody ever comes in and nobody ever comes out. That night, Charlie tells his grandpa what the tinker said, and his grandpa reveals that Wonka locked the factory because other candy makers, including his rival Arthur Slugworth, who's just straight creeping down there, sent in spies to steal his recipes. Wonka shut down the factory, but resumed selling candy. The origin of Wonka's labor force is unknown. Plot twist, it's fantasy sharecropping. Wonka announces he has hidden 5 golden tickets in chocolate Wonka bars. Finders of the tickets will receive a factory tour and a lifetime supply of chocolate. The first 4 tickets are found by all those children that we'll get into. And as each winner, as announced on television, a sinister-looking man whispers to them, "It's Slugworth. He's straight creepin'." The next day, Charlie finds money, uses it to buy a chocolate bar, and then he opens it, and surprise, there's another golden ticket in there. Next day, Wonka takes the ticket winners to the factory, and basically, all the children end up in very unfortunate situations, and some of them should have died. But anyway, we're gonna get into that. So basically, what you need to know is, Wacky Gene Wilder sends tickets out into the world, he gets 5 kids, Slugworth is there. But let's focus on those other kids for a second, and here's why they suck. So Mike TV is by far the blandest character other than Charlie, yet somehow he's the most grating. In the books, he's American and from Arizona, so take that as you will. Mike is obsessed with violence and television, and also he's rude to his mom. He also blatantly ignores safety protocol, even when he knows the result, and he sounds annoying, and the modern equivalent of him would probably be a Trump-worshipping 10-year-old who cosplays as a Marine and thinks white men are legitimately oppressed. Veruca Salt is much in the same vein, where she's entitled, whiny, and selfish. She doesn't have 2 brain cells to rub together. She's a spoiled, rotten little crotch goblin who legitimately thinks, but I want it, is a viable reason for her to own something. She tries to buy an Oompa Loompa at one point. A person. She tries to buy a person. Anyway, she crosses safety boundaries to try and grab a big old goose and gets dropped into a garbage chute. She deserves that. Augustus Gloop, he's a fat kid and it's 1971 and he's German, so that condemns him because it's 1971. I guess he doesn't listen to authority when Wonka says don't drink from the chocolate river. But first of all, he doesn't speak English very well, and he was also previously told anything in that room was edible. You really gonna tell a kid that he can eat the flowers, but he can't drink from the chocolate river? I guess he wouldn't be a very good candidate for running the factory because he's just a baby, but don't be mean to him. Charlie Bucket, on the other hand, has a personality of an underbaked dinner roll, and we'll get into that later. Violet, on the other hand, God tier. She knows the most about candy, as demonstrated by her knowledge within the factory. She recognizes the gobstopper when Wonka holds it up, and she recognizes other things in the factory too. She's nice to the Oompa Loompas, unlike Veruca, who again tried to buy a person. And feasibly, she actually saved the life of at least one by eating that gum that turned her into a blueberry. Because Wonka says, we're still testing it. Who's testing it, Wonka? It's the slave labor. It should also be noted, though, that Violet found her golden ticket out of her own hard work. The movie never specifies how Mike found his, but while Augustus and Charlie found theirs by chance, and Veruca's father used his factory workers to open candy bars for her, Violet put aside her gum chewing to switch to Wonka bars and find it, which, by the way, gum chewing is her only crime, and we're going to analyze that. So, here's the scene where she supposedly gets her comeuppance. Except everything about this points that this is not Violet's fault. In the scene, Wonka walks up to the gum making machine where he takes out a piece of gum and literally waves it in Violet's face. When he asks her what it is, he then corrects her needlessly to be like, wrong, it's amazing gum. And so of course Violet snatches it out of his hand because he's being a pompous asshole. And when Violet takes it from him, Wonka does not say that the gum is dangerous until it's already in her mouth. If you watch the scene, as she takes the gum from him, the only thing he says is, now, I wouldn't do that. You know what, Wonka? You also wouldn't wear that horrible matching two-piece suit that she's gone on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to kill you. That serves, though, as Violet's only warning, as Wonka's further attempts, if you can call that quiet no, stop, don't, as a warning, are too quiet for her to hear. She's sharing her data as it goes on. She's explaining exactly what she's feeling, what she's experiencing, and so she would not be able to hear this sassy man halfway across the room. Also, even as, Violet starts turning blue and turns into a blueberry, unlike the other kids in this scene, she is only hurting herself. But what about the gobstoppers? She took a gobstopper to give to Slugworth. We don't have evidence of that. Violet attempted to take 2 gobstoppers, and then she was only given 1. She also never actually gave the gobstopper to Slugworth, nor did she take any action to do so. Therefore, we cannot prove nor assume her intent. My theory is that she asked for 2 to take 1 for herself, and upon being denied, chose to keep it instead. After all, her father is a used car salesman. She probably doesn't have much pocket money. A jawbreaker that lasts forever sounds like a hell of a deal, especially when you remember she chewed the same piece of gum for 3 months. Now, Charlie was practically held by the hand and walked into the solution, which was when Wonka's crying, go ahead and give him back the gobstopper to prove you're trustworthy. And Violet has demonstrated that she's a bright and clever young woman. I'm sure she would have done the exact same thing. Now let's talk about, now back to Charlie. His entire personality is that he's sad. There's an entire song about how sad he is. He survives because he has never had a thought on his own in his life. But also, more pressing, he committed larceny. He stole the fizzy lifting drink and only survived through plot armor. He committed a worse offense than Violet, just not as public. Now, I'm not saying that Wonka shouldn't have done anything for Charlie, but handing over the factory to this boy who doesn't have any experience in business or any backbone would not do him or anyone any favors. What Wonka should have done was put that boy through college, find him a different job at the company. What we do see Charlie demonstrate is he demonstrates empathy, and he's kind, and he's a good listener. He would be a great HR rep. I am sure that the Oompa Loompa workforce has some grievances, and honestly, Charlie will be the man to listen to that. All Wonka had to do, though, was give Violet, a smart, talented young woman with a personality most like his own, a chance. and he failed to do that. And as such, his factory is now going to be owned by a bland, undereducated young man who committed petty larceny for shits and giggles.
What is?
Did you make
Am I allowed to say thanks for coming to my TED Talk?
Yes. Wow.
Good.
I'm converted.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave
For
this
real.
up for a
Wow.
second.
That artwork is stunning.
Wow. Okay, that beautiful work of craftsmanship was 9 minutes and 27 seconds long. So that would be 36.9. So go ahead and give me 3 clinks.
I've got
Otherwise known
my
as 3
big
sips.
jug of water.
Chug, 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 chug.
I spilled water all over myself.
No, after enough waters, that'll happen to anybody.
Ooh. I'm glad I went first.
All right. Do we have any questions from chat for Justin's presentation? So Justin, talk a little bit more about. You said in the beginning that you were inspired by the fact that you did this play in junior high and you held onto this. What made you identify with Violet so much?
I think particularly so. I was a senior in high school doing makeup for a middle school play. To get some volunteer hours for my AP US history class. And
Sure.
I had a lot of time to think as I'm sitting there. And the actress who played Violet particularly, she was very adamant about that. And I was sitting there, washing off my makeup brushes, just being like, this child has a point. She knows what she's on about. And so I actually, during that, I then picked up the book and was like reading it during dress rehearsals and things. And what particularly cemented my hatred of Charlie Bucket is the fact that the middle school drama teacher actually reached out to the guy who played Charlie Bucket in 1971, and was like, hey, my kids are doing this show. Do you want to maybe say hi to them? And rather than just, do like the reasonable thing, which would be like, oh, I don't want to bother with this, I'm not going to answer the email, he sent back an email that just said no, and then had a PNG of his signature. So anyway, I'm going to find that man, and I am going to beat him up in a Denny's parking lot. If any of you have connections, let me know.
All right. I guess the second question would be, which Denny's parking lot, and can we charge for admission?
I'd pay money for that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Same.
I feel
I
like
mean-
we need to hire on Gritty to serve as the representative of Oompa Loompas.
Clearly.
No,
And as
that's
an Oompa Loompa representative, he will back you up.
Orange
That's-
solidarity.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the right choice. Is just getting Gritty in there to murder him with his t-shirt cannon.
For you, I will write a fight shanty.
It's all gone full circle.
Perfect.
Wow.
I'll Photoshop some breadsticks in there, and then we just gone. All the lore.
Oh my god. Wow. Everything is connected. Welcome to Point and Clink. Thank you so much, Justin. We're gonna go. Yeah, absolutely. Applause. And now we're gonna go to Noah. Are you ready?
I was not born ready, but I became ready.
That's what matters.
There we go. Okay,
Oh, all right.
let me get my stuff all set up.
Okay.
I got a screen share. The
Yes.
whole malarkey.
Yes. Screen share, please.
Beautiful. Can we see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Radical. Are we ready? Shall I start?
We are ready.
Whenever you're ready.
Fighters, wizards, rogues, and clerics, I bid you all a very fond greetings and a deeply exuberant hello. My name is Noah Loring, and I'm here to tell you about the fabulous train wreck of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. I'd like to thank Ryan Omega for hosting this shindig, and I'm honored to be here on Point and Clink, destroying my liver. We've got an absolutely unhinged slew of slides to cover, so let's dive right in. First off, what exactly are we talking about? That, my dear rhetorical friend, is a great question. Tonight's topic is an edition of Dungeons & Dragons known by some to be the black sheep of the family. Let's place what we're talking about in time. These editions on the left are the classics of the game. Collectively, they created the baseline assumption of what Dungeons & Dragons is, cobbling together its DNA from Tolkien, Avalon Hill, and a wonky little war game called Chainmail. Much later on, we see what could be referred to as the new wave of Dungeons & Dragons. Most of us are going to be familiar with 5e, which basically saved the property and has been received extremely well. Right before 5e was a somewhat controversial edition, one whose design alienated some players. This is 4e. In truth, a big part of what made 4e so different was that it was a direct reaction to the edition that came before it. A lot of its design was based on reining in and rolling back the excessiveness of D&D 3.5. But what made D&D 3.5 so worth rolling back? What about it demanded such reactionary design and defined the course of D&D to come? Most of all, what makes Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 a fabulous train wreck? The core of 3.5's wild levels of dysfunction lie in its sheer complexity and volume. This is not just a bloated tome of rules. It was not just a simple case of publishing too many splat books. This was a situation far more dire. Let's spell this out. 3.5 consisted of 2 players' handbooks, 2 dungeon master's guides, 5 monster manuals, 40 additional full rules supplement, each like 100 to 200 pages, 40 more campaign setting specific supplements, again, very long pieces of work, 55 dragon magazines that all have magic items and spells and classes and gobbledygook, 55 dungeon magazines, because you can't have one without the other, hundreds of online articles. I forgot to even mention like adventure paths and modules, but a lot of them also had finicky little rules. Now, if we put all this together, it's a little abstract, so I'm going to break down some further figures. 85 base classes, not including alternate class features, archetypes, etc. 148 unique races, not counting bloodlines, templates, monstrous races. 600 prestige classes. And if you don't know what that means, bless you. You are innocent of a great evil. Roughly 1,800 feats, somewhere in the ballpark of 3,000 spells, and the magic items. This is too much. Tonight, I'm not going to tell you about all of these, obviously, because we'd die, but I'm going to try to give you all a glimpse of some of this game's strangest corners, its most baffling designs, and the bizarre ways that players have explored it in the 18 years since its release. So come, take my hands, and together we'll enjoy a fabulous train wreck. Okay, so I feel like the best way to introduce you to all this is to show you what is an extremely common way to die in 3.5. We're talking certain death for about 99% of characters. We're including NPCs there. Check out this savage beast, located on page 270 of the Monster Manual 1. It resides in temperate biomes and sports a bonus to hide checks of about plus 14, which is a lot. Clearly, it's an ambush predator. Its only weakness is a low damage output. 3 per turn is not a lot, but it is enough to kill a commoner, because they have about 3 HP. It's also enough to kill most wizards and sorcerers and other squishy folk. So what monster is this? What are we talking about? What fearsome beast is capable of felling NPCs and PCs and most elves in a single flurry? Well, no less than your average of course. This is not a joke or exaggeration. I'm not playing up how lethal house cats are. Written as they are, the average house cat is incredibly lethal. If you have a cat in real life and that cat has scratched you, you're dead in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. This is you. That's me. But this is your cat. But it's not all that bad. Let's focus on the pluses, how we can make the system work for us. Speaking of working for us, commoners in 3.5 are ridiculously overpowered. We're talking infinite melee damage by level 11, and all you need is one particular ability, and to be a commoner. It starts, of course, with the chicken-infested flaw. Available only to commoners at first level, the chicken-infested flaw, which I feel like Gritty has, reads that whenever you draw a weapon or an item, instead you have a 50% chance to find a chicken. Now, this is intended as a bad thing, but because this is 3.5, we're going to find a way to break it horribly. The trick is to combine chicken-infested with a capacity to draw infinite items. Enter spell component pouches. Drawing anything from a spell component pouch, or rather any bit of bat guano or copper wire or whatever you need for your spell, is a free action, and there's no limit to free actions per turn. So a chicken-infested commoner or Gritty can use one to draw an arbitrarily high amount of poultry. You with me so far? Good. Now we weaponize these poor birds. Cleave is a feat which lets you take an extra attack per turn whenever you deal lethal damage, but only once per turn. Great Cleave removes that limit. With these two feats, we can butcher infinite chickens per turn, which I am not endorsing, but you can. Now we need a way to turn this gruesome energy upon our enemies. Enter the Warmind's 5th level class feature, Sweeping Strike. Don't worry too much about the rest of Warmind, just know that you need to take 5 levels of Psychic Warrior first. So you're going to adventure for a while, you're going to be Commoner 1, Psychic Warrior 5, Warmind 5. A lot of numbers. Once you pick up Sweeping Strike, it basically lets you sort of mush your attacks into people that are adjacent who you're attacking. So you hit somebody and you just sort of like coax it along till it also hits Charlie of the Chocolate Factory Flame. So if you haven't figured out how this goes, this is how you do it. So you approach Charlie. You approach Charlie Bucket. You start drawing spell components until you draw a chicken at his feet. You attack the chicken, which will die and trigger 2 things. A, Sweeping Strike, so you also bludgeon Charlie. And B, Cleave, so you get another attack. You drop another chicken as a free action. Repeat infinitely. This is what 3.5 is. You play the game. This next slide, or the next slide, is where things are going to get extremely crazy. So in case any of you are still hanging on to any hope that 3.5 is like a normal thing and that I'm just exaggerating it, let me dispel that, because you're fooling yourself. Here are some true facts about 3.5. Fire elementals can burn to death, only in deserts, but wood is not flammable. Monks are not proficient with unarmed strikes. The capstone ability of the Dragon Disciple prestige class turns you into a half-dragon, but this disqualifies you for the class. Being disqualified makes you stop being a half-dragon, which makes you requalify, which disqualifies you again. This sounds very painful. Rogues of 2nd level or higher have a 5% chance of surviving a point-blank nuclear bomb. Oh, go back. Empty glass flasks weigh more than glass flasks filled with holy water, alchemist fire, or acid. The best samurai are gnomish archaeologist barbers. I refuse to explain that. Death is so poorly defined that abilities which are purely mental, such as those wielded by the Scion class, can be used with tonal impunity even while dead. Additionally, because the rules don't state that dying or being unconscious makes a creature prone, we can assume that once dead Scions come after you and start mind blasting you from beyond the grave, they're doing it in perfect T-pose position. There is my internet service provider was really upset that I was making all these edits. There's a feat called Blessed by Temet Nu from the Sandstorm supplement, which grants you the ability to control hippopotami as an evil cleric controls undead, but it also makes it so that if you ever betray the goddess of hippopotami, you immediately suffer 2d6 plus 10 damage. Why? Because this is the damage of a hippopotamus's bite. This makes sense. There are 24 classes that have the word war in the title, including such thrilling, titillating entries as the Bear Warrior, the Taint Warrior, and the Eunuch Warlock. Lastly, a wooden ladder costs less than a 10-foot wooden pole. Infinite money. Now that our brains have been thoroughly reduced to an emulsified paste, I'd like to touch on one of the upsides of 3.5. That being that with such a sprawling system, as expansive as Violet Beauregarde's round form, the game is a veritable feast for players with oddball character concepts. No matter how utterly left field your idea might be, there is something in 3.5 that can model it without any need for refluffing or reworking. The trick, though, is to know where to find what you're looking for. With this in mind, let's explore a case study. About 6 years ago, at the start of a new campaign I was running, my buddy Ben came to me with a character concept. Now you have to understand, my friend Ben was, and continues to be, a big fan of One Piece. As such, he wanted to try his hand at playing a character like Runanoro. His name it has Zoro at the end. For those not familiar with all 890 episodes of One Piece, this is Zoro. He wields 3 swords, one of which hangs out in his mouth. This being said, this being 3.5 and me being insane, I looked Ben in the eye and told him that I would find a way to make mandibular tri-wielding a thing, or I would break my teeth trying. Now, obviously, the 2 swords are the easy part. Dual wielding is classic cool guy shit. There's no problems there. The intrigue, then, as any smooching enthusiast will have you know, lies in the mouth. Enter beholders. Beholders are giant, monstrous, cyclopean flying heads with razor-sharp teeth. Sprouting from their head are a number of magical eye stalks that shoot lasers. But for our purposes, we don't give a flying flump about their eye stalks or magic. What we care about is a beholder's sweet, sweet mouth. And in particular, what they can fit in their said sweet, sweet mouths. See, in 2005, a supplement titled Lords of Madness was published, which focused on aberration-type monsters. Buried deep in this book is a bizarre weapon enchantment, one designed primarily for beholders, but theoretically useful to any creature with a lack of arms and a surplus of mouth. This enchantment is Mouthpick, and applying it to a weapon allows it to be wielded in the mouth. Bingo! Case closed, right? Wrong. The Mouthpick enchantment stipulates that wielding such a weapon requires a creature to have a natural bite attack, and we're talking monster chompers. Ben wants to play a human, a normal human, not with monster chompers. So that's not going to happen. Thus, to open our minds, we need to unhinge our jaws. Let's mosey over to the Spell Compendium, which features a bunch of unusual cleric domains. Among these oddballs is the Hunger domain, which sports some ghoulish spells, but more importantly, bestows a natural bite attack as its granted power. Aha! So clerics of hunger get a bite. Once again, I believed I'd solved things, and I consulted Ben, but as it turns out, playing Zoro as a cleric was a no-go. Thus, we met another dead end. Unless there's a way to kind of be a cleric without taking levels in cleric. Thus, we must consult the Planar Handbook, which is a feat which we'll need. Get a load of this. This is one feat. This is one ability. And it's called Planar Touchstone. I'm not going to go through all of this for obvious reasons, but just know that when you take it, you get to pick a special cosmic location and out of a list of cosmic locations, and you get an ability associated with it. So there's one that's a big lake, and then you can't drown. But this one that we care about is the Catalogs of Enlightenment. The Catalogs of Enlightenment are a giant library run by a robot. And if you take the feat Planar Touchstone to form a relationship with the Catalogs of Enlightenment, you get to pick any one cleric domain, and drumroll, get the associated power. Just what the doctor ordered. Simply beautiful. And now, to review the hoops that we've hopped through, let's run this back. First, we find a special magical library that grants divine powers, but not everyone can have them. Ben becomes someone who can access this library by yoinking the Planar Touchstone feat. Out of all the divine powers available, we opt for picking the Munchies and select the Hunger domain, giving us some enhanced chompers. Then we pair these chompers as a special type of magical weapon originally meant for beholders, and oh, fuck. It says you have to be a large size to do this, and humans are Monkey grip, yes, okay. Monkey grip from page 103 lets you wield large weapons. And it makes it sound like it should be mouth, but I think we can use our mouth. Okay, so we have solved it. Through aberrant enchantments, stolen divinity, 2 entire feats, and a bit of prehensile grip, we have found a completely rules-as-written way to engage in mandibular tri-wielding. Was this intended by the designers? No. But do we get to play Rorono Zoro in 3.5? You tell me. Okay, we did it. We're done. We beat Dungeons & Dragons. I'd like to say one last thing, though. It has been an honor to have your time and your sanity. I was really happy to present. And I think there's one more question left. This evening, we've taken a tour through the bizarre black sheep of the D&D family, a labyrinthian monster full of twists and turns whose total volume is basically unusable in scale. Yet there's something glimmering about this mess. D&D 3.5 is the collective work of hundreds of contributors, writing books and penning articles and illustrating monster manuals and coming up with mouth picks and thinking that's a necessary thing to have. And all of them work together to create a system that's difficult, but wondrous to explore. None of 3.5 works with an ounce of elegance, but in a sense, that's because it's not meant to. It's too chaotic, it's too raw, and it's too beautiful. So with all that in mind, isn't this a game worth playing? Shouldn't you give D&D 3.5 a try? No. Absolutely
Oh man! Oh man!
not.
That was too good. That was too good. It also was so good that it lasted for 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. So you need 5 large sips, or
shit.
it's substantial, and I mean drink finishing substantial. Super chug.
Good thing I only have half a liver. Okay.
I'm gonna have to kill this, and then unfortunately I have another engagement, and I think Liz does too.
Yeah, I need to bounce as well, actually.
All right. So before we ask Noah questions, Noah, can you stop sharing the screen for a second?
Yes.
All right, great. So there we go, that handsome mug of yours. All right. So before we hold on, let me adjust things. So before we ask Noah any questions, let's get the social medias of our lovely ladies who presented today. In the case that you want to see what they're up to, let's start with Dr. Jess. Where can people find you on the internet, and tell them any projects you would like to plug?
You can find me most readily on Twitter. I'm at Dame_DNA, also at PDX Broadsides and at PDXYAR. You can also find me on Facebook as any of those things. What am I working on right now? I'm recording some sea shanties. That's happening. And I'm doing a lot of science communication right now about the vaccine and where you can find it on the West Coast. Because I think it's really important that we get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. So I do a lot of SciComm these days. But yeah, come hang out. I'm fun. My mom says so.
And we say so. Thank you.
Endorse.
Thank you. Liz, where can people find you on the internet, and what are you up to?
I'm up to a bunch of stuff. Best places to find me on Twitter, I'm at the loveliest Liz. There are lots of Liz's. I am the loveliest. You can also just go to elizabethnordenholt.com for all of my things. I host a few podcasts. I host Your Fave is Problematic, where we talk about our problematic faves and maybe why we still love them and maybe why we don't. I promise it's funny. We have a good time. I also host FMK All Day, where every week we play No Holds Barred Fuck, Marry, Kill in 15 minutes or less. I am also occasionally on this channel for Boardroom Angels and Purgatory Cafe. So if you're not watching those, you should be, because it's turning into something really cool and special. So go get caught up on that and then watch them, because it's a wonderful group of people. And yeah, just follow me on Twitter. I tweet all the stuff I do there, like at the loveliest Liz. Just follow me. It's fine.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to all the wonderful presenters, and Paul and Tessa. I will try to watch this back later because I want to hear all about what you're talking about too.
Yeah,
so
I'm
thank you for sharing.
I'm gonna go back and watch the presentations I'm missing, because these have all been excellent and I love this. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Noah, first of all, wow. I swear to you, if you put up this presentation on YouTube, I think this would be fire. I think the number of people that would probably watch and circulate it, how much time did you put into it? Because it looked so labor intensive and so detailed. Like, how I'm curious. I'm almost scared. How much time did you put into it?
This is shout out to the dungeon masters of the world. If you're a dungeon master, like you, Ryan, you know that this is just what you put into the average campaign. So much,
Aw.
but yeah, I put in more hours than I should have, considering that I have an essay due tonight. But
Can I
it
get
was a lot of fun.
the PNG of Noah Cheems? I need it for reasons.
Of Noah Cheem? Okay. Yeah, I'll send that to you.
Does anybody have any questions for Noah? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're good.
Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and put into chat. Does any of our other presenters have any questions?
I see Pun mentioned.
You think God stays in heaven because he too is afraid of what he created?
Is it bad that one of my favorite systems is 3.5 because it is broken?
No, I don't think that's bad at all. Like, I definitely have a love for it. I recognize that it is a problematic fave, but there's something
Yeah.
about its garbage, you know.
We have a question. Can you count all the magic items? If not, can you explain Pun for the uninitiated?
Oh, okay. So the magic items are modular, right? You can design your own, and it's basically infinite. So no, I can't. One of the gnarliest things is that there's an item called a self-resetting trap. So traps that reset them, it's pretty self-explanatory, but you can apply any spell to it. So in the D&D universe, there's no such thing as hunger, because you can make a self-resetting trap of create food and water. Like, the rules of 3.5 are so robust and bizarre that I think you can like make a computer in it. It's like Minecraft, but bad. Like,
So you could redstone like a Mac?
what?
You could redstone a Mac in 3.5?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
made out of fighters. I don't know. As for Pun, look up Pun. Google that. I wanted to put that in the thing, but it's way more technical, and it would just be like gibberish. But I suggest to all of you to Google Pun 3.5. It's the most powerful build in 3.5, and it is bizarre. It is truly strange.
And so another question. So it's Discworld.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Planescape is a second edition. It's basically Discworld. But the turtles have cracked shells, and the elephants have wonky knees. But they're trying their best.
Arthritis.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Noah.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have our co-host Tessa. Are you ready?
As I'll ever be, but I don't think I could ever follow that.
I have full confidence in you.
So we'll see.
Okay. I do have a favor to ask either Justin, Paul, or Noah, because I'm handling the tech. Can one of you just set a timer just to see how long Tessa's presentation is, and then we'll analyze from there. I think you got it, Justin, right?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, cool. Let me give me a moment, Tessa. Let me adjust this so that that it looks correct. Oh no, I mean, go ahead and leave it up. I just need to adjust it in OBS.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, go ahead and share your screen.
Technologically literate I am. Perhaps this is true.
Yes, actually, it's not. It is not a fault of yours. It's an adjustment on my end as a result of whenever we go from the share screen to our individual into our gallery view, the proportions are different, and so so we're making up for my lack of super experience, but we're still good.
No worries.
We're still good. Okay, we are now ready for you.
Oh, okay. Before I begin, so don't start that timer, I would like to make a disclaimer, and here's my drink for it.
Okay, disclaimer drink.
I normally don't present presentations I've previously made, but Polygon recently made an article about how this presentation is correct, and so I felt validated in reusing this. So enjoy. Also, this is my opinion, even though it's correct. So, start. W.I.T.C.H, which is the cartoon scene here, is bold letters, better than Winx Club, solving the hottest 2000s cartoon debate, and I will die on this hill. Context. This was a huge debate in my elementary school, divided loyalties and destroyed friendships, and to this day, I do not respect Justine. Sorry, Justine, if you're watching. I literally do not understand why this is a debate in the first place, because one is clearly better. So, some shared traits across both shows. So in the 2000s, early 2000s, 2001 about, there was actually an Italian comic boom for girls. So there were magical girls cartoons in 2004 about, based off of the boom in 2001 comic sales from Disney about magical girls that had elemental-based powers. Long story. They were all about girls with wings and cool inherited transformation powers. Same thing. They both fight evil in another dimension. They have a relatively diverse cast for 2004. They both have royalty plot and wear crop tops. And their main character has red hair and is annoying. This is an important fact that ties them together. Winx Club overview. Winx Club has a resurgence of popularity due to its Netflix show, which dropped recently and has nothing to do with the original cartoon, so I will be talking about the original cartoon. They're college-age fairies, but their age is never specified, but they date people from Laser Weapon Boys College, so I'm going to assume, hopefully, that they are also in college. Literally all of the main characters are canonically aliens from different planets and dimensions, but that's never mentioned in the Winx show. But assume that, like Sailor Moon, they all stem theoretically from a different plane that controls different powers. It's Nickelodeon, but make it skinny fashion. This is actually important because they referred back to Italian fashion designers to figure out how they should dress, and they're all based off of fashion models, which is why they're tall and like tiny. The main baddies in Winx Club are old witches, or, this is important, they're hot descendants that are inherently just evil because they're from the evil dimension, and that's totally fine. They don't need to explain it any more than that. They date graduates from Laser Weapon Boys College. Laser Weapon Boys College does not employ any fairies because Laser Weapon Boys cannot be fairies. Bloom is the main character, and her dead parents were dragon mer people, and so she can make fire. This makes more sense if you watch it a little bit, but not more. Not much more. And they have genre-based powers. What I mean by this is some control fire, or the sun and the moon, but some others control like technology, like they're technomancers, or like music. So it's not all like earth, wind, water, etc. Witch, on the other hand, here we go. They're literal tweens that canonically go to middle school, so we know what age they are. They're earthlings, so they're like Terran, they're like human. They also inherit powers as guardians. This show originally premiered on ABC Family, then it went to Jetix, but it's really all Disney. And they are literally fighting a magical dictatorship, aiding a full rebel war, stemming from a dispute about magical royal titles due to the matriarchal inheritance system of Meridia/Kandrakar. Yeah. So there's some depth to the plot that's maybe not as existent in Winx Club. They eventually date bland Earth boys and rebel leaders from a different dimension, so there's like some, variety. Will, the redhead there, is the main character and has vaguely normal parents, and they have elemental-based powers. So I kind of get it a little bit more than like music powers, whereas these have clear definitions. So here's the part where I compare the opening theme songs without forcing you to listen to them both in full. So, Winx Club has some longer additions to it. It's longer considerably, and it's a pop-based bubblegum type song. It includes lines such as, we've got the fire and we've got the flare, look all you want, but don't touch the hair. Whereas Witch is a clear pop rock tribute that is much shorter and has lines like, there is a place where darkness reigns, we have the power to fight back and save the day, united 5 as 1. However, they do share many similarities, such as declaring the actual powers as a lyric. So we'll compare that with Magical flowers, digital powers, rhythms and tunes, the sun and the moon keep on searching far and wide for the fire burning deep inside. Versus witches, water, fire, earth, and air, guardians unite, which is just like sums it up in a nice, neat little 10-second package. Ultimately, if you like Evanescence, you'll like probably the Witch theme song, but probably not the Winx one. If you like hyperpop, you might like the Winx theme song more than the Witch one. So it's a kind of an up and down. Costuming and character design. So the one with longer hair, in ravewear with a tiara and high-heeled boots, that is the main protagonist of Winx. How do people not see up her skirt when she flies is a mystery, but they never do because the show is marketed towards children, so it just kind of flutters around right around the crotch area, never lifts up. It's not functional whatsoever, and the wings have to flappy in order to fly, so like they're functional in theory. Meanwhile, we've got Will here with the shorter hair. She wears a turtleneck, big sleeve, tiny skirt, but it has tights under it, so you can't immediately see up the skirt whenever they fly around. Vaguely functional boots, crop top, but strange belly button emphasis. Not really sure what that's about. It's semi-functional, and the symbolic wings do not tend to flappy, so that's a bonus in my book. The real debate here, the only true debate between Witch and Winx Club, as they are both, in theory, shows that you could enjoy if you were, an 8-year-old child, is main villain hotness. Now, in terms of main villain hotness, in my opinion, there's a clear distinction between people who like guys with white hair and good abs, and people who like trios of hot witches with no clear plot motivation. If you like, what I like, weird elven prince-looking dudes, you're probably gonna watch Witch. Prince Phobos, his magical powers are like being evil, hating the matriarchy because he was born a man and didn't get to inherit magical powers in theory until he stole them, and like controlling like doom, gloom, and roses, canonically. The tricks from Winx are also cool, and they have really cool fashion, but they're just mean girls that they like made witches. Like Sabrina, but like worse. In terms of fantasy princess representation, Witch tends to keep it more conservative and more angry, but also more diplomatically centered. So Elion here, with the rings in her hair, ends up like ruling a kingdom and is very considerate of the common people, whereas Stella, with the long hair, really likes fashion, only has one episode that ever addresses her like head of state status, and like I don't even know what she's supposed to be doing, but she rules a planet in theory or is next in line. In summary, Winx was a mediocre show about getting magic powers, squandering said magic powers, dating, and having 10 gorgeous magical girl transformations. It's clearly a show that is good for a specific audience. It got like 8 seasons. It's now rebranded to appeal to literal preschoolers or sexy teenagers. So, like, are you like 5 or are you like 18? Yeah. So Witch is a kick-ass show with good aesthetics, morality, and is questionably available on questionably legal DVD, which I may or may not have in my living room. It still holds up as one of the best shows of the decade, dealing with tween problems and war in a way that predated Avatar: The Last Airbender, and in my opinion, was kind of a framework for Disney and Nickelodeon addressing deeper issues. And lastly, Netflix picked the wrong 2004 Magical Girl series to adapt for an edgy live-action show, at least according to Polygon. And I agree with this, 110%. Please make more witch content. It's my screensaver at the moment. Anyway, any questions?
All right, we're going to take questions from chat if they have any, or from our presenters. Thank you so much, Tessa. Let me just adjust things over here.
And I've got the time too. It was 9 minutes and 43 seconds. Please don't make me do math.
That's
Okay,
okay. It
that's
should be 3.
drinks. Yeah.
3.
Mm,
3 drinks.
Hold on, I need to make a new drink for this.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, a drink because Polygon literally wrote an article on this because that's amazing.
Yeah. Fun facts. Witch is a show that still holds up, and I would still watch. Whereas Winx, I think I would, let die a little bit, or at least not watch. Pineapple, we want the pineapple in the chat. Oh, okay. Long story short, I do have a glass pineapple full of vodka, and for Dr. DJ Curly, I will add some to this monstrosity of a beverage.
Yay!
Yay!
Hey, Dr. DJ Curly, so happy to have you here.
All right.
All right. Yes. Yes. We do have a couple of questions. One is, does Prince like long walks on the beach? 2, is he single? I'm assuming Prince Phobos.
Yes, Prince Phobos. Prince Phobos is theoretically single, though in the comics, in which he gets further canon after being captured by the rebellion, he eventually jumps off of an infinite cliff because he is immortal, and his manservant, who is also immortal, also jumps off of the same infinite cliff. So you cannot date the infinite immortal 2 that fall down the cliff, but in theory they could date each other, so in theory they are only potentially gay.
That's like
So,
air bearing your gaze?
I don't even know. But Lord Cedric is also top tier, except he turns into a snake.
We
But
can
they
work
just
around
need to
it.
get rid of him, so they threw him off an infinite cliff because they cannot die.
All right. And what's the best place / way to watch Witch? I mean, you mentioned the DVD, but do you know if it is publicly available anywhere else?
So this is the tough part. It is technically owned by Disney, but Disney hasn't released it yet on Disney Plus. So I'm advocating heavily for that if someone from Disney Plus is magically watching. But you can, in theory, catch it in tiny pixelated chunks on YouTube or own it. That's about the only way.
All right. And if you have such a contact, we will send Gritty to make sure that that happens.
After we use the infinite chickens to kill Charlie Bucket in the Denny's parking lot with Gritty, we are going to go watch Witch as a watch party.
Oh my god. Thank you so much, Tessa.
Yeah, glad I could contribute.
Yes, you did contribute. You're also our co-host, so thank you. All right. Okay. And our final presentation today will be Paul with the topic of time travel and inconsistency. Are you ready, Paul?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Give me a moment. I'm going to let me do some adjustments real quick. I'm okay. And anytime you are ready.
So, time travel doesn't exist. Let's get that out of there right now. Which means that when we write about it, as with any kind of magic, we can create whatever rules we want. The problem is that most of the time, when people create these rules, they don't then bother to follow them, and it just looks so lazy. If you're making it up, follow your own rules. So to start with, we need to establish a couple of things when talking about time travel. And the first of those is how time works. And this is a tricky concept. There are 2 or 3 basic ideas. The first is eternalism, which is characterized by there being no privileged present and all of time existing all at once. This theory first came into popularity in the late medieval period. You'd have people like Aquinas arguing that God had divine foreknowledge because God existed outside of all of time and could view it all at once. This necessitates all of time existing. But this works very counterintuitively. We feel like there's a now, which is where the presentism theory comes, which holds that there is, in point of fact, only now. The future hasn't happened yet. The past is gone. YOLO, dog. But we feel like there should be a past and a future, and those are kind of important if we're time traveling. So we get a combination theory, the moving spotlight, which holds that all of time exists, but there is a privileged present that's moving like a spotlight through this timeline, with the privileged present lit up and all of time existing around it. I know that's really dry, that's really boring, but it is important that we understand how time works so we can talk about different types of time travel. The first is consistent. It's most in tune with eternalism. These are time travel stories in which you can move around in time, but you can't change anything really. These are where we get into predestination paradoxes, causal loops, that sort of thing. It's the most interesting stuff. It's where we really dig in to the content that we're talking about and what makes time travel interesting. But it's also the hardest to tell stories in because we want our heroes to have agency, and telling stories where nothing can change, that can be tricky. It's contrasted with inconsistent time travel stories. And this covers a lot of stuff. It's most in tune with the moving spotlight theory. And these are stories where anything goes. In inconsistent time travel stories, you can go back, you can change the past, it can alter the future. It's where fun stuff happens, but not necessarily deep philosophical stuff. The Terminator, the original film, is one of the best consistent time travel stories ever told. It is, at its core, an ontological paradox, a causal loop. John Connor, in the future, sends his father back in time without telling him he's going to become his father. He makes him memorize this speech about there being no future but what we make, knowing it's a lie. He creates himself so that he can fight the war that needs to be fought. He has his father go back in time, tell his mother the things that John is going to need to hear growing up. It is beautiful, but it is a very tightly contained, consistent time travel story. And then we get to Terminator 2. And at the start of Terminator 2, it looks like we're setting up this beautiful symmetry where Cyberdyne Systems is building Skynet based on the technology from the destroyed Terminator. They've got the chip, they've got the arm, they are reverse engineering this future tech. So just like John sent his father back in time to create him, Skynet has sent its creator back in time. The technology that it itself is going to be based on. You have this story where these two great leaders of this war are creating themselves in the past so they can fight each other in the future. Until you get halfway through the movie, they kill Miles Dyson. Arnold says, "Woohoo, I've got a minigun now," and starts shooting cops. And from that point on, nothing really matters. Nothing really matters. And it finishes with the view of the road ahead and the darkness of the edge of it and no fate but what we make. And that is antithetical to the way time travel is pictured in the original film. It runs completely counter to it because if the past can be changed, if there's no fate but what we make, John couldn't send his father back in time to father him. In principle, Skynet couldn't be built based on the existing tech. That's the whole point of sinking the T-800 into the lava at the end, is that, you know, if you destroy this thing, Skynet can't be built. And that's really a shame. They come... Don't get me wrong, T2 is an entertaining movie. It's a great action movie. It's a terrible time travel movie. And I'm just going to talk for just a second about subsequent entries in the Terminator franchise, because there's 4 film sequels after T2, plus a TV show. The general theme that we get is that Judgment Day is inescapable. It's flat out said in Terminator 3 that Judgment Day can't be prevented, it can just be delayed. Of course, this gets completely ignored in Dark Fate, which is a direct sequel to Terminator 2 and ignores all the intervening films. Of course, in Dark Fate, there's still a Judgment Day. It's just different computer system, and a different leader rising up to lead. You've also got Salvation, which I think is underrated, clearly hampered by its budget, and Genesis, which is just terrible. Just terrible on every level, especially with the time travel, where you have, once again, a message being embedded in a dream sequence in the past so that then in the future, people know how to stop the thing that they stopped so they wouldn't have had to have stopped it to begin with. It's a terrible mess. And this is kind of indicative of these sorts of problems. You can't mix consistent time travel and inconsistent time travel in the same story because their philosophies inherently conflict. But it is possible to do truly excellent inconsistent time travel stories. Back to the Future is a story in which Marty McFly goes to the past and has agency, can alter that past, creates a better future for himself by inspiring confidence in his parents. It is a story in which we get great touches, like the Twin Pines Mall becoming the Lone Pines Mall because Marty ran over one of the trees when he jumped to 1955. You have all kinds of beautiful cascading effects going into the future. And none of it really matters because as long as Marty ensures that his parents get together, then apparently it doesn't matter how their relationship was jostled right at the start. Everything's going to be fine. He and his siblings are still going to be born. There is a problem, though.
What? Trousers?
Trousers?
Here, direct Discworld reference. The Trousers of Time. The problem in the Back to the Future franchise comes into play in Back to the Future Part 2. So in Back to the Future Part 2, just to remind everyone, they travel to the distant future year of 2015. They pick up the Gray's Sports Almanac, which is then stolen by an older version of Biff who travels back to 1955 to give it to his younger self, who then uses it to make winning bets, creating a divergent 1985 timeline. Sir Terry Pratchett described timeline divergent like this as the trousers of time, where you go down one leg or you go down the other.
Oh, okay.
There's a problem with this, though. And that is, in 2015, Biff goes back in time to 1955, but then old Biff comes back to 2015 so that Marty and Doc can get the time machine back. This happens 10 minutes of runtime before Doc explains why they can't just go back to 2015 from their divergent 1985 in order to fix old Biff getting the time machine and the Gray's Almanac. They want to play it both ways. I understand the problem. They needed some way for Marty and Doc not to just be written out of the timeline as soon as Biff travels back in time. But we see Biff do the thing Doc tells them they can't do. They aren't following their own rules, even in their inconsistent time travel story. And this really bothers me. Back to the Future Part 2 was my favorite of the series when I was a kid because, hey, hoverboards are cool. But it's the one that most directly violates the rules that they've set up. And that really bothers me. Really bothers me. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is the sort of feat that may never be duplicated in Hollywood. You have so many connected films over the course of such a long span of time, starting out with no plan. And that no plan, one of the spaces it shows is in how the MCU depicts time travel. We first get time travel in the MCU in Doctor Strange, where we see all kinds of cool stuff relating to the Time Stone in the Eye of Agamotto, where Doctor Strange is able to reverse time and create temporal loops. And he's able to affect changes in the timeline that then carry forward. It's all very cool. The problem is, when we get to Endgame, we get the time heist, where nothing matters, there are no consequences to anything. And you have Hulk specifically call out, it's time travel. Either all of it's a joke or none of it's a joke. In the time heist, they're traveling back in time and they are stealing all of the plot coupons from all of the previous movies to take them back. You specifically get at one point the Ancient One saying that without the Infinity Stones, time won't exist? That the existence of the Infinity Stones in some way creates what we perceive as time? And that removing it from her timeline is going to cause a dark cascade effect, which kind of begs the question as to what happens in the mainline MCU since all of the Infinity Stones have been destroyed. Time shouldn't exist anymore? But I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that means. I don't know why they said it. But all of that inconsistent time travel would be fine if we didn't then have old Cap showing up at the end. The writers and the directors are of two minds as to how that happened. The writers say Cap was hanging out in the background through all of these movies, living to an old age with Peggy Carter. The directors say, well, clearly he was in some kind of divergent timeline, and the smart folks in that timeline, their Tony Stark, their Hank Pym, helped him get back to our timeline. And we just have that happen off screen.
What?
That's the only way it could happen, because the writers are completely wrong. If the things they did in the past actually cascaded into the future, then Loki wouldn't be around for Thor 2 because he disappears at the end of Avengers. Wouldn't be around for Ragnarok. All of the stones getting taken out of their proper places in time, those were important things that folks would have noticed. It couldn't be the case that Thanos could have gotten the Soul Stone to do the initial snap if the Soul Stone had been stolen before he had gotten it. And you can argue that Cap going back in time and putting the stones back where they were helps, but that still doesn't fix Cap showing up old at the end. The way that I have to reconcile this for myself is that time travel via the magic of the Time Stone is different from time travel via Pym particles in Endgame. They're two different methods and therefore obey two different rules. And we get a little bit of clarification on this towards the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we have a whole season that's all about time traveling and time hopping, and a final explanation of it that is that they are in fact quantum tunneling between parallel worlds. There's a theory, a quantum theory, about the many worlds theory, where every decision we make, every distinct quantum state creates independently existing near Earths that exists sprayed out across the multiverse. And so the time travel in Endgame and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is tunneling through the quantum realm between these worlds. It's very complicated. There is some evidence to support this textually in Endgame, where we have Tony Stark discussing eigenvalues with regard to his temporal models, which is a method of modeling multidimensional linear formulas. So that's a little technical there.
Oh no.
So my final thoughts, if you can't tell your story with the rules you made up, make up different rules or tell a different story. That's what this all boils down to. This is all made up nonsense. But if you want people to invest in your story, then you need to tell it in a consistent way. If you're changing your own rules in the middle of your story, you're telling a bad story, or you made bad rules. And you're making them both up. So just don't. Just don't.
Amen.
I'll drink to that.
I apologize for this very confusing rant, but it was in my head and it had to get out there.
Oh my goodness.
God bless you, Paul.
I didn't notice.
Also, that was 1515, which aside from time travel means
5 drinks.
3, 6, 9, 12, 15. You're right.
Chug. Oh my god.
It's gotten to the point where I don't know if it's because I've had drinks or if it's because it's time travel that I don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, there's that scene in Looper where you have Bruce Willis saying we could sit here and model out time travel with the salt shakers on this diner table all day, but it doesn't matter. Looper also does not follow its own rules, but it's not a franchise and not that beloved, so I didn't bother covering it.
Is there uh franchise or even a movie that you did find is a more elegant version of time travel that
So
does at least told solidly?
there's a bunch of individual movies that do it great. Like I said, the original Terminator does consistent time travel great. So does the original Bill and Ted. Um,
Oh, okay.
Bill and Ted also goes off the rails, especially with the third movie with the evil future versions of Bill and Ted. Um,
Mhm.
but broadly speaking, the first Bill and Ted, beautiful. The second one, mostly beautiful. The only rule that Bill and Ted creates is the ticking clock. The idea that while you're off gallivanting through time, time keeps moving in your original space. That they used to set up the dramatic tension in the first movie. They kind of ignore at the finale of the second one when they go off into the past to learn to actually play their instruments and come back with babies and actual musical skill. They ignore the ticking clock rule there, which is a bummer. Um, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is a great, consistent time travel story. Um, and not nearly her greatest crime, but among her many crimes is The Cursed Child, which completely ignores the way that time travel works in Prisoner of Azkaban. But if you have lots of individual films that do a great job, but anytime you want to do a sequel, it seems like you end up screwing something up.
Yeah, especially if
Yeah.
the sequel has like different production requirements that usually is the reason why there's such a screw up. We have a question from Dr. DJ Curley. If you
Yes.
bless you, that was so cute. Uh, if you wrote a time travel plot, which rule set would you favor?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I would want to write something internalist because like the predestination paradoxes, the causal loops are really interesting things. Like there's a bit in Lost where Locke has this compass that he is given by Richard Alpert coming through and handing it to him while the island is skipping through time, and it turns out that Locke in the future gave Richard that compass to give to him. So, like, there's more matter in the universe during the span of time that compass exists, which is a wild thing. It's also like it was never built. If it was never built, is it a compass? Is it a compass-shaped object?
Well,
What
doesn't
is
that
it?
doesn't that fall into the Terminator loop then of the enemy being created to be the enemy to be created to be the enemy? Like who invented
Kind of.
Skynet in the first place?
Well, this depends on the movie. Depends
Ah.
entirely on the movie. So I would want to do an Eternalist story, but those are tricky, and like I couldn't really do a follow up.
A couple of other questions. Does Arnold's Terminator Man like long walks on the time beach? And also, is he single?
So as established in Dark Fate, which is as of this the most recent Terminator sequel, Arnold Terminator is retired and named Carl and married, but did seem like he would enjoy long walks on the beach. He seemed like a romantic as long as it wasn't physical, because he's also a half-ton robot. So you know, I didn't
Carl?
mention, but one of the most interesting things with regard to the Terminator franchise in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which is a highly underrated series, you get a bunch of different folks being sent back to different points to try to alter things. And one of the ways that they try to track their progress is by talking to each other about when was your judgment day, because when judgment day is keeps getting shifted depending on who's doing better in this sort of temporal cold war leading up to the actual war. And that I thought was very clever way for them to deal with the thing that they're doing, even though the thing that they're doing can't happen, and still have John Connor exist.
Wow.
Uh,
That's a very I this is such a dense topic.
Yeah,
And
trying
it's
to cram it to 15 was
yeah,
tricky.
yeah, but
Tricky.
you did it because like because I was able to follow everything that you were saying, but it does remind me why I try not to deal with time travel just stuff. It doesn't really work in a LARP at all.
Yeah, which
Like,
is tricky.
yeah,
There's some time travel stuff going on with Twin Mask right now, right?
yeah, but the way they kind of do it is they do it like hundreds of years in the future, so that when you affect things, like there's no, you can't trace it, you can't control it, and they try to make sure that you don't leave certain relics behind to alter things. But it's super tricky thing
Yeah.
to do. But thank you for tackling that topic, and thank you for presenting it in a way that, as dense as a topic as it was, like I still was able to understand it because of the way you explained it. So
Well, I'm
thank you.
glad. That's always a
Hey,
good
does
sign.
my roommate showing up in the background to grab his clothes count as the cat appearing in screen rule? His name is.
It now does.
Now it
so
does.
says the
Okay,
shot
cool.
czar.
Yeah, so shots are. Tessa
Thank
our
you.
shots are. So, thank you for joining us for our premiere episode of Point and Clink. If you like what we do, please follow. Please recommend this lecture to your friends. I mean, this was an incredible set of lectures, and I cannot wait to figure out what the next one is going to be. And this will happen uh, again next month, Wednesday, around the same time. And let's go around the room. Where can people find you on the internet and plug the stuff you are doing? I'm going to start with Justin.
Okay. So I'm either Sheriff Cappy or at it's JJ Monty on most things. Um, and you can find me, like I said, as the head of story with Alliance LARP Las Vegas, which hopefully will be starting events sometime this summer. In the meantime, though, we have a Discord and a Facebook page that you can check out. I also DM with 4HP Studios, which you can check out at 4hpstudios.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin. Paul, where can people find you on the internet and plug any things you want to plug?
So when there are actual events happening, and we aren't trapped in the darkest timeline, I help run an extremely rules light small LARP in LA, based largely in the fandom of, but legally distinct from, a particular boy wizard school.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find information about that on Instagram at HAMM_academy, the Hollywood Academy of Magic and Mystery. It's a good time.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Noah, where can people find you on the internet or anything that you might be working on?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Noah. On page 179 of the Lords of Madness is the Darkstalker feat, which actually prevents you from being found. So no, that's a real thing though, and if you're a rogue, you should take it. But I don't really have like Instagrams and stuff. But can I plug like an important organization that does good work in Los Angeles?
Of course, of course.
Cool. Okay. I highly recommend looking into Peace for Kids. 4 is the number, Peace for Kids. They operate out of Central and South LA. They work with foster kids. Really important organization to me. And right now and to the people in it, but it's been important in my life. If you can spare like even a small amount of money, it's a wonderful place to send that to if you want to give to a charity. On another level, they do a lot of online classes, especially now during like social distancing. So if you are an expert in something such as time travel or the Witch Club or any of this, then you could contact them and they might really love to have you in to teach some cool things and hang out with some fantastic kids and do important work. So Peace for Kids, and they're on Instagram and all of that stuff.
All right. Thank you, Noah. Tessa, where can people find you on the internet and plug anything that you would like?
Oh, well, I have nothing as important to plug as Noah does. You can find me on the internet at AssetTessa101 on Facebook or just AssetTessa1 on Twitter. And I guess if I were to plug anything, I am going to be playing a new LARP called Romancing Jan, which is played only over snail mail. It's a Regency era LARP where you kind of contact each other through notes and support the postal system while you do it. So romancingjan.com is what I'm going to plug today. Join me if you want to write each other as, cheesy Regency era aristocrats.
All right. So I'm Ryan Omega, your host and director here for live action role plays Point and Clink. Thank you for joining us here. So what's coming up? So tomorrow we're gonna have another live action role play with Kai Norman, myself, and guest Avon Gonzalez, who you may have seen on Game Over Video Chat, and we're gonna talk about game design as uh, Avon is a game designer of games such as Cantankerous Cats and a new game called Prosperity, which is all about tea. On Friday, will actually be on. Well, actually, I don't know if I can announce that, but look out for me on Indiecade, and I'll probably give you some details. But Mondays, I'm on Indiecade at 10 a.m. as the producer for Iron Game Designer Challenge, where I sometimes play games along with the host Sam Roberts, who is a professor at USC who teaches gaming at USC Games, and we usually have a game designer from somewhere around the world who has made a notable, significant game. And at the end of 8 weeks, we actually have them all compete in an Iron Chef type of game design. We will figure out what the secret ingredient is, and they have to make a game within a certain period of time live on stream. So that is what I am working on. Thank you for joining us uh, here. If you have suggestions on what the next topic should be, I'm very open to some of those ideas. Those topics could be as broad as uh, history, science, technology, or it can be as obscure as something related to a stone. But I'm looking for the next topic, and when we look for these topics, or when Tessa and I look for these topics, we judge basically on the pitch. All right. So again, thank you for joining us. Let's find a channel to raid, and I think let's raid our friends over at Saving Throw Show. Um, they are a wonderful group of role players, and we need to come up with a raid slogan. And I think I already know what it should be. It probably should be Clink or something.
Clink.
No, Infinite Chickens. It needs to be
Infinite chickens.
Infinite Chickens.
Chicken.
Infinite
Can we
chicken.
add a tack on there so it does sort of?
Yes. Wait.
There we
Infinite Chickens attack. All right. All right. I am pressing the raid. Thank you again for joining us. We always enjoy all of these diverse, different topics here at the channel, and we hope that you will continue to join us and support us and follow us as we make more and different varieties of content. I haven't been drinking and yet I can't talk. We will see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Much love.
Okay, here we go.
And we are out.
There we go.
Ooh.